Good afternoon and welcome. Welcome students, loved ones, faculty, and staff to the White Coat Ceremony for the class of 2028 at Weill Cornell Medical College. I'm Michael Stewart. I'm the Interim Senior Associate Dean for Education and Professor and Chairman of the Department of Otolaryngology, Head and Neck Surgery here at Weill Cornell. I'm honored to be here for this wonderful occasion. The White Coat Ceremony is one of the most celebrated academic events at Weill Cornell. It is the bookend ceremony to graduation and is where students receive their first white coat as a rite of passage into the field of medicine. The white coat itself serves as a uniform for our profession, but far more importantly, the white coat is a symbol of a commitment to humanism and to the care of the patient. Understanding the lives and stories of individual patients is more important than ever in our current world. In class of 2028, you are entering medical school at a time when there continue to be significant changes in healthcare. Physicians are needed more than ever to lead the way forward. We are very privileged today to be joined by a very special group of faculty participants who will assist our brand new students in donning their white coats as the first step in establishing their professional identity as physicians. Each of these faculty members embodies excellence in our profession and showcases to you, class of 2028, the range of what is possible at Weill Cornell. When I say the name of each faculty member, I ask that they please stand. Dr. Erica Abramson is the Assistant Dean of Education, Research, Outcomes, and Innovation, a Professor of Pediatrics, and a Professor of Population Health Sciences. Dr. June Chan is the Assistant Dean of the Clinical Curriculum and an Assistant Professor of Clinical Anesthesiology. Dr. Salvatore Silmi is the Ehrenkrantz Associate Dean of Academic Affairs and an Assistant Professor of Medicine. Dr. Richard Cohen is an active Weill Cornell alumnus, class of 1975, and a Clinical Professor of Medicine. Dr. Joseph Finns, another Weill Cornell alumnus, class of 1986, is the E. William Davis Professor of Medical Ethics, and he holds professorships in several departments: medicine, medicine and psychiatry, medical ethics and neurology, medical ethics and rehabilitation medicine, and population health sciences. Our students already had the opportunity to meet Dr. Finns this morning as he led their session on the Hippocratic Oath. Dr. Dana Gurvich is the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Student Life and an Assistant Professor of Clinical Anesthesiology. Dr. Joy Howell is the Assistant Dean of Diversity and Student Life and a Professor of Clinical Pediatrics. Dr. Catherine Hsu is another Weill Cornell alumnus from the class of 1994's MD program and the class of 1993's PhD program. Dr. Hsu is the director of the Tri-Institutional MD-PhD program and a professor of medicine. Dr. Janine Katzen is our newly appointed Associate Dean for Admissions and an Associate Professor of Clinical Radiology. Dr. Keith Laskaya is the Associate Dean for Student Affairs and Student Life and an Associate Professor of Clinical Medicine. Dr. Jennifer Lee is the Assistant Dean for Program Development and Operations and an Associate Professor of Clinical Medicine. Dr. Paul Miskovitz, another Weill Cornell alumnus, class of 1975, and a past president of our Alumni Association, is a clinical professor of medicine, and it is in his name that the Moss Family Foundation established the Stethoscope Fund. Dr. Anthony Rossi Jr. is another Weill Cornell alumnus, class of 2008, and current vice president of our Alumni Association. He's an assistant professor of dermatology. Dr. Joseph Safdie is the Gertrude File Associate Dean of Curricular Affairs, Vice Chair of Education in the Department of Neurology, and a Professor of Neurology. Dr. Kaushal Shah is the Assistant Dean of Academic Advising, Vice Chair of Education in the Department of Emergency Medicine, and a Professor of Clinical Emergency Medicine. Dr. Adam Stracker is the Chief Medical Officer, Director of Primary Care for Weill Cornell's Physicians Organization, and he's also the Associate Dean of Clinical Affairs and an Associate Professor of Clinical Medicine. Dr. Joshua Weaver is the Assistant Dean of Student Affairs and Student Life and an Assistant Professor of Clinical Neurology. Thank you again to all of our faculty participants in the White Coat ceremony. It's now my pleasure to introduce our Dean. Dr. Robert Harrington is a cardiologist and serves as the Stephen and Suzanne Weiss Dean of Weill Cornell Medicine and Provost for Medical Affairs of Cornell University. A native of Somerville, Massachusetts, and a first-generation college graduate, Dr. Harrington graduated magna cum laude with a Bachelor of Arts degree in English from the College of the Holy Cross. He received his medical degree from Tufts University School of Medicine. A previous president of the American Heart Association, Dr. Harrington remains a member of the AHA's Board of Directors. He also served as an advisor to the U.S. Food and Drug Administration and has been elected to numerous organizations, including the National Academy of Medicine. Passionate about improving upon the methodology of clinical research, Dr. Harrington has written more than 760 peer-reviewed manuscripts, reviews, book chapters, and editorials, and has served as senior editor of Hurst's The Heart, a leading textbook of cardiovascular medicine. In addition to this outstanding academic resume, Dr. Harrington is an outstanding communicator and thoughtful leader who has shown deep dedication to the success of all of our medical students. Please join me in welcoming our Dean, Dr. Robert Harrington.
Thank you, Dr. Stewart. And we would not have this extraordinary class of 2028 without your leadership, without your help. So thank you. And another thank for all the faculty who are here to us today. But before I get into my address, I always like to remind us all that this is a journey. It's a journey through medical school. It's a journey through medical training. And none of us make it on our own. We make it because of a lot of the people in the room and a lot of what is represented by the people in the room. Friends, family, partners, spouses, children, supporters. Everything that you all do is what allows these students to thrive. And so I want the students to take a chance to give a hand to the supporters who are here in the room and who are listening in other rooms. So please join me. Thank you for indulging me in that. Now to the class of 2028. This week starts your professional journey as a physician. You will have the opportunity to develop your talents in many exciting ways here at Weill Cornell Medicine. This is an institution that supports a tripartite mission to care, to discover, and to teach. And to that tripartite mission, I always add a fourth mission of community, the community of which you're here to serve. Today's ceremony is a rite of passage, marking the start of your lifelong commitment to patient care and ethical practice. The physician's white coat and the stethoscope are the most visible symbols of our honorable profession. This afternoon, I'm going to tell you a little bit about why the white coat is unique and profoundly different from any other uniform that you have ever worn. But before our faculty help you put it on, I would like to take a moment to review some incredible statistics about you, our class of 2028. You've come from many places, you're residents of 20 U.S. states, and you attended 59 different undergraduate colleges. You were born in 15 countries, and many of you have studied and lived abroad. 11 of you attended Cornell University and are now seeking to become what is known as double red. 9 students have already earned master's degrees. Collectively, you have been involved in 250 research experiences and have contributed to over 40 publications. 10 of you participated in NIH, National Institute of Health, sponsored research. From your passion in scientific research, there's been acknowledgement of that. 2 of you became Goldwater Scholars, and 3 of you are Fulbright Scholars. And this next statistic is, I think, one of the most amazing and really reflects what we're trying to accomplish here at Weill Cornell Medicine. Nearly half of you, 49%, are bilingual or multilingual. And incredibly, every third person in the class of 2028 is a first-generation student. Now, Dr. Stewart noted that I'm a first-generation college student as well. I was raised by a single mother living next door to her parents. My grandfather, who I still refer to as the smartest person I ever met, had an 8th grade education. But he was committed, he was an Italian immigrant, and he was committed to the notion that his grandson would get an education. And so instead of spending my summers on the roof with him, he was a roofer and a carpenter, he made sure that I was studying and that I had every opportunity. And I think about him often in a ceremony like this as I look out at you and as I look out at the families. And I hope that as students you remember how much your family, how much your supporters, how much your friends have sacrificed so that you can be here with us today. You are impressive, and I'm also impressed as a cardiologist at how active you are. 13 of you played an intercollegiate sport. 2 of you previously served in the military. And this is a really amazing statistic. 1 of you, and I'll leave it to you to find that person, performed as a dancer in the 2022 Super Bowl halftime show. Now, these activities, among many others, round out your lives. But what I like about it is that it's going to help you with important skills like teamwork, partnership, and time management. And I hope that as your medical student journey begins, you continue to find time for your outside passions outside of the classroom. Now let's turn our attention to the coat. And you may have wondered, do we really pay all this attention to a coat? And in fact, we do. With a little digging, the faculty have been commenting, you may discover that this ceremony is a recent invention. Most of us did not have a white coat ceremony that are sitting on this side of the audience, and it's one of the reasons we're thrilled to be here today. The first recognized white coat ceremony took place across Manhattan at Columbia in 1993. Why? What changed? Why was this practice instituted? A pediatric neurologist, Dr. Arnold Gold, was worried that some of the humane aspects of medicine were being de-emphasized. He gathered medical school deans at the time to find a way to reinforce at the beginning of training those fundamental qualities that medicine requires: ethics, morality, compassion, honor. And so the white coat ceremony and what it symbolized quickly became a widespread medical tradition. Dr. Mark Hochberg in the AMA Journal of Ethics called the coat, quote, the other critical part of students' medical education, a standard of professionalism and caring, and an emblem of the trust that we all must earn from patients. At last year's white coat ceremony, Dr. Linny Golightly, another alum from the class of '83, spoke of superpowers that you may feel when donning your white coat. But like all good superhero stories, she warned that those powers are not always good, and that with great power comes great responsibility. Today, let me reflect on that a bit. You will appear as a superhero from the moment that coat finds its way to your shoulders. Every time you wear that white coat, the world will view and treat you differently. The difference between the short white coat you receive today and the long white coat you receive later in your career is just a section of cloth to those who rely on us for caring and healing. They represent the same thing. You will be expected to act like a medical professional now, not 4 years from now, but now. Your advice and your counsel will be taken seriously, even before you might want to admit to yourself that that is what's happening, and before you truly know what to do. This may be stressful, and maybe even perhaps a little unfair. After all, you're at the beginning of the journey, not the end. But let me provide you some advice, perhaps, on how to meet this obligation. First, earn and maintain the trust of those seeking your care. In 1927, the famous physician from Boston, Dr. Francis Peabody, laid a foundation of clinical practice that's worth repeating. One of the essential qualities of the clinician is interest in humanity, for the secret of the care of the patient is in caring for the patient. Serve those seeking your aid with compassion and empathy. Show kindness, not just in your eyes, but in your entire approach. Help patients take charge of their own health when possible, and be there for them when it is not. Be extra attentive when you are dealing with patients that don't share your lived experiences, people who suffered from disasters, or those from populations which have been underserved or excluded by health care. We have built a community at Weill Cornell with a bedrock of diversity, equity, inclusion, justice, and belonging. So too should your patients feel like they belong in your care. Second, always remember how much language matters. A good friend of mine from Stanford, the physician-author Abraham Verghese, wrote about a character that is asked, "Tell us, please, what treatment in an emergency is administered by ear?" The character responds without hesitation, "Words of comfort." In the confusion of a health crisis or in the halls of a hospital, people will look to you for words of guidance. In preparing yourselves for those moments, remember that what you say, how you say it, and how you listen can change the life of a patient. This goes not just for our patients, but for those around us. Communicating with clarity, honesty, and mutual respect for your colleagues will take you far. Remember, teamwork is essential and critical for the practice of medicine. Third, serve and honor others. The practice of medicine requires selflessness. The patient is always at the center of the relationship, not the physician nor the care team. Time, sympathy, and understanding must be lavishly dispensed, Dr. Peabody advised, but the reward is to be found in that personal bond which forms the greatest satisfaction of the practice of medicine. I imagine many people here have seen you building relationships with patients as a volunteer or assistant. I'm an interventional cardiologist by training, and I remember taking care of patients 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, who'd suffered from myocardial infarction, heart attacks. In part for me, it was a way of living my life that honored my mother, who died at the young age of 42 from a sudden cardiac arrest. And that was the year before I entered medical school. And I spent the last years since graduating from medical school, as Dr. Stewart had noticed, trying to understand why people have heart attacks and how to treat them. And while we've made great progress, I remain committed to additional progress. And I'm going to look to many of you to help us in that journey of continuing to rid the world of diseases that can be prevented and certainly that can be treated better. One of our most decorated faculty alums, Dr. Bill Popp, from the class of '75, originally came to Weill Cornell Medicine from Haiti, and he returned there after he finished his training. Coincidentally, I had the great privilege of meeting Dr. Popp for the first time yesterday. Prior to yesterday, I had only met him via Zoom. Sound familiar these days? He's dedicated his life to reducing the death rates in his country, beginning with the AIDS epidemic and now continuing through the study of cardiovascular disease in the economically deprived world. He has cared for many through so many challenges, and what he's learned and done over the span of 40-plus years is nothing short of heroic. And he should serve as one of those role models for you as you look at a life well lived. Honor the personal bonds and remember why you entered the field. As you receive your white coat today, you embark on this exciting and meaningful profession with a shared mission, serving our one world of humanity. Our work does not end. The responsibility to heal people who seek our help will last your entire career. No matter the challenges, no matter the setting, in all cases, we have an obligation to care and bring together science and humanity in equal parts. We here have great confidence in you, and our faculty can't wait to share what they know with you. And I'm convinced and know from experience that we're going to learn from you as well. Despite these high expectations, always be sure to have some fun too. You're in an incredible setting here in New York City with so much to see and do. Be sure to take time to recharge, re-energize, and relax when you need to. We hope you wear your coats with pride, with honor, and with responsibility. Maybe even with a little bit of style, although look at all of us, it's a little tough to sometimes pull off. Class of 2028, welcome to Weill Cornell Medicine. And now, it's my honor to introduce our white coat speaker, Dr. Laura Riley, who does look stylish in her white coat. Dr. Riley is the chair of obstetrics and gynecology and the obstetrician-in-chief at New York Presbyterian Weill Cornell Medical Center. She's also the Given Foundation Professor in Clinical Obstetrics and Gynecology. She leads the OBGYN services at this medical campus, including the Alexandra Cohen Hospital for Women and Newborns, as well as at the additional campuses for New York Presbyterian in Lower Manhattan, Brooklyn, and Queens. She's a maternal fetal medicine specialist and an internationally recognized expert on obstetric infectious diseases who works with the CDC and the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists to develop practice guidelines on infection, including on maternal immunization. She's a past president of the Society for Maternal and Fetal Medicine and has won that society's Lifetime Achievement Award. She's the author of numerous peer-reviewed articles and reviews on obstetric infectious diseases and is on the editorial boards of contemporary OBGYN in the New England Journal of Medicine. She earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in biology from Harvard, and she completed her medical degree and residency at the University of Pittsburgh School of Medicine. She returned to Boston for a fellowship in maternal fetal medicine at Brigham and Women's Hospital and a fellowship in infectious disease at Boston University. We are incredibly grateful here at Weill Cornell for her leadership, and please join me in welcoming her to the podium.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Harrington, for that very kind introduction. To the class of 2028, congratulations and welcome to Weill Cornell Medicine. I really am honored to share this special occasion with you, your friends, and your families, and my own colleagues. While admission to this medical school is a great achievement, this is only the beginning of something extraordinary and will challenge you to do even more than you believe is possible. I thought I would share a bit of my career story with you and some pieces of advice imparted to me along the way. You entered this profession at a difficult time in many ways, but also at a time of incredible opportunity. For instance, genetics, gene therapy, fetal surgery, the immunology of pregnancy, and the imperative to reduce maternal mortality will reshape obstetrics in the next few years. Attention to the plight of women across the world and the lack of scientific knowledge about adolescence through menopause will shape your futures in all specialties, not just OBGYN. As you heard in my introduction, I'm a high-risk obstetrician who trained in both maternal fetal medicine and infectious disease. In preparation for today, I reflected on the most common question I was asked during my medical school interviews. And my guess is that 40 years later, the question is the same. What is your plan? Plan for getting through medical school, for choosing a specialty, for forging a career. Maybe the interviewers knew then that I would be an obstetrician. And some of you may know that OBs are always talking about the birth plan. With the birth plan, there are easy questions like, do you want your partner to cut the cord? And much harder questions like, do you want to avoid anesthesia? Of course, that seems like a great idea until the fierce contractions are coming every 3 minutes for a long, long time. I always say to my patients, the goal is a healthy baby, but the birth plan needs to remain fluid. So back to that medical school question, what is your plan? When I was 7, my plan was to be Dr. Joe Gannon, a TV doctor who saved everyone every week because he could practice every specialty from OB to cardiothoracic surgery. By the time I was 17 and a pre-med in college, the plan was uncertain but a bit more realistic. The classes were so hard. The plan became much more exciting in medical school when we started the patient-doctor experience, which allowed us to interact with live patients, not just gross anatomy. Now I was out of the classroom and in my element. Although I knew very little, one of my favorite attendings said, "Do not underestimate the healing power of a smile or a touch." At 24, when I was deciding on a specialty, my favorite rotations were GYN oncology and obstetrics. At that point, my personality seemed most suited to happy outcomes, so I chose obstetrics. At 27, as an OB resident, my plan was still on course. I delivered so many babies to happy parents enjoying wonders of birth. Eventually, I realized that I was most intrigued by the complicated stories, the preterm births, the babies with congenital anomalies, and patients with medical illnesses precluding healthy pregnancy outcomes. At 31, everything in my plan was upended. I finished my maternal fetal medicine fellowship at Brigham and Women's Hospital and started my first job at Boston City Hospital, not far from the rough neighborhood I grew up in. I could not have anticipated the devastating effects that the HIV epidemic would have on young, healthy women. 30% of my HIV clinic patients died in 3 years prior to AZT being widely available. So much for the happy outcomes that were in my original plan. But enter the wonder and relief brought by scientific discovery. Antiretrovirals made a deadly disease a chronic one, and HIV pregnant patients almost never deliver infected babies anymore. None of that was part of my plan, and neither was all that followed. a career focused on vaccine-preventable diseases affecting pregnancy, and working with the CDC on national preparedness for emerging infectious diseases impacting pregnant patients and their newborns. So what does all of this mean to you today? You are entering Weill Cornell Medicine, where you will be given the tools to execute your plan. You are stepping into the very institution that healthcare heroes like Anthony Fauci, the infectious disease expert who led the COVID response, and years before led the advocacy around the development of HIV treatments, which is when I first met him, Mae Jemison, the astronaut and beacon for Black women physicians, C. Everett Koop, the Surgeon General who championed smoking cessation, and Peter Hotez, who to this day strives to combat misinformation about vaccines, an ongoing public health threat. Those physicians walked the same hallways, took what they learned within these spaces, and became teachers, advocates, and leaders focused on public health and wellness. In fact, as physicians practicing whatever specialty, we have the same plan as outlined from the Hippocratic Oath. That is, to love those who taught me these arts as I love my parents, to soothe the pain for anyone who needs my art, to offer those who suffer all my attention, my science, and my love, to never harm my suffering friend, to understand his sorrows, but his secrets will never leave my ears, and to care for anyone who suffers, prince or slave. As you navigate this learning environment and absorb great knowledge, don't forget those who supported you along the way. When I was a fourth-year medical student, I got stuck in a case with Bartley Griffith, a prominent cardiothoracic surgeon. There were no residents to buffer that experience. He was terrifying, but he taught me to sew and tie knots in one 40-minute surgery. 40 years later, he was a visiting professor here at Cornell, and I just had to go see him and thank him. To this day, I get quick consults from my med student classmates who are now internists and critical care specialists, and also from all my former teachers. Finally, I give thanks for my family, for the little things that they did, like sending frozen food in medical school, and later putting up with listening to presentations that might as well have been written in Greek. How you execute the plan is the exciting part. In this group, you will be clinicians, researchers, educators with expertise in basic and translational research, public policy, public health, who will move us forward in scientific discovery and innovation in ways we can't even dream of today. You must know that once you don the white coat, the expectations are that you will execute your plan with integrity, with humility, and with love. You may need to remind yourself of the plan periodically, lest the rigors of life put you off course, like at 2 a.m. on the umpteenth admission, on the 4th hour of medicine rounds, or the last patient who is late and ruins your dinner plans. You have entered a noble profession that cannot be shaken by outside forces, and remember that those who see your white coat expect and deserve empathy and respect. A few more things. This insider's thoughts. That white coat has pockets. The top right is great for index cards that house your clinical questions. One day, you will have the time and the expertise to put those studies into motion. The bottom right pocket is easy access for the reminder cards, the plan, if you will. Mine has pictures of miracle babies that I've delivered over the years. It also has pictures of babies who actually bear my name, which is always fun. And then my favorite, which is the Badass Mom card. And that's a reminder from my daughters of the family that got me through. And you still have an empty pocket for those algorithms you just can't commit to memory. Another thought to share. Remember, those algorithms have their limits. We are lifelong learners, and some of the most impactful teachers will be your patients. Last thing, this is especially for the class. First stand, all of you, all of the new class. Look at the person ahead of you, to your right, and to your left, and behind you. Although you are diverse in your lived experiences and have diverse interests, starting today, these are your partners on the most remarkable journey ahead. These are your colleagues in this work. You will make many contributions to medicine, providing excellent and equitable clinical care, pioneering scientific discoveries in the lab, and igniting a passion for humanism as we teach the next generation. We are all thrilled to have you join us. Again, welcome to Weill Cornell Medicine.
Thank you, Dr. Riley. I particularly like the Badass Mom card. I hadn't seen that one before. In our profession, it is an ancient custom that no one may be admitted into the ranks of physician who has not first expressly accepted its responsibilities as set forth in an oath. And you've heard a bit of this from Dr. Riley. At Weill Cornell Medical College, as in many other medical colleges, we use an oath that bears the name of Hippocrates. In the 2,000 years since its creation, the Hippocratic Oath has been revised many times to reflect changes in the practice of medicine while still remaining faithful to its fundamental values. Nearly 2 decades ago, a committee of students and faculty, led by Dr. Finns, who leads our medical ethics curriculum, met to revise the Hippocratic Oath, which is administered at our commencement ceremonies. The revised oath was first taken at the commencement of the class of 2005, and it has been used here ever since. One of my predecessors, Dean Emeritus Tony Gatto, said about our ever-evolving Hippocratic Oath, "We've benefited from the generations of physicians before us, and we have an obligation to pass this on to future generations." For the students, you will not take the oath until graduation. Nonetheless, on this day, when you don your white coats for the first time as a medical student, I will read it so that you can hear. And as you listen, I ask you to reflect upon its meaning. I do solemnly vow to that which I value and hold most dear, that I will honor the profession of medicine, be just and generous to its members, and help sustain them in their service to humanity. that just as I have learned from those who preceded me, so will I instruct those who follow me in the science and the art of medicine. That I will recognize the limits of my knowledge and pursue lifelong learning to better care for the sick and to prevent illness. That I will seek the counsel of others when they are more expert, so as to fulfill my obligation to those who are entrusted to my care. That I will not withdraw from my patients in their time of need. That I will lead my life and practice my art with integrity and honor, using my power wisely. That whatsoever I shall see or hear of the lights of my patient that is not fit to be spoken, I will keep in confidence. That into whatever house I shall enter, it shall be for the good of the sick. That I will maintain this sacred trust, holding myself far aloof from wrong, from corrupting, from the tempting of others to vice. That above all else, I will serve the highest interests of my patients through the practice of my science and my art. That I will be an advocate for patients in need and strive for justice in the care of the sick. I turn now to my calling, promising to preserve its finest traditions with the reward of a long experience in the joy of healing. I make this vow freely and upon my honor. It's now my honor and pleasure to reintroduce you to Dean Stewart.
Thank you, Dean Harrington. I would now like to invite Dr. Keith Lascalia, the Associate Dean for Student Affairs, to come to the podium. He will read the names of each group of students and the faculty coders who will help our students don their first white coats. Students, after you receive your white coats, please come to the side of the URIS stage and pick up your stethoscopes. Now I'd like to turn the ceremony over to Dr. Lascalia, who will call your names.
Thank you, Dean Stewart. Good afternoon, everyone. It is an honor to welcome the class of 2028 into the Weill Cornell family, and it's been fun getting to know some of you already. As I call your names in groups of 4, please proceed to the stage to receive your white coats. So, we'll start. So it's going to be groups of 4. So, all right. Anissa Aladdin. Oh, I'm sorry, our coding. Thank you. So our coders, let's start there, sorry. False start. We have our first group of coders is Dr. Mickey Stewart, Dr. Laura Riley, Dean Bob Harrington, and Dr. Dana Gervich. And now we'll get started with the students. All right. Anissa Aladdin, Kwajo Amioko Boedu, Chelsea Asari, Masuta Begum. Catherine Elizabeth Bell, Heather Megan Berman, Taya Binder, Daniel Bulletin. Montana Hize Boone, Norma Jean Brown, Christopher Chan, Angela Chow. Dorothy Chen, Alex Chang, Emily Chang, Wu J. Harry Choi. Kelsey Church, Dan Andrew Colombo, Michaela Alex Davis Pedlar, Michael Deeb. Thank you to our illustrious group of first coders. You can now sit. Our second group of coders will be Dr. Richard Cohen, Dr. Janine Katzen, Dr. Joseph Finns, and Dr. Kushal Shah. All right. Ian Thomas Dinmore, Brett Lawrence Dolatina, Alexandra Dryan, Emily Drysdale. Joelle Beatriz Duque Jimenez, Natnaliel Felike, Pranya Gadapati, Julia Garafa. Jay Gardella, Andrea Garrido, Aiden Gelston, and Yana Glemad. Rachel Leigh Harder, Michelle Junyi, Stephanie Sarah Shu, and Vivian Huang. Ayaka Inoki, Viveka Jain, Arash Jalali Sohi, and Star Jiang. Helen Jin Lee, Tara Joseph, Justin Dale Kemp, and Shazan Ahmed Khan. Our Group 2 coders can now be seated, and I'll ask the Group 3 coders to come up, Dr. Adam Strocker, Dr. Catherine Hsu, Dr. Paul Miskovitz, and Dr. Anthony Rossi. Daniel Kim, Grace Maya Kirkwood, Andrew Peter Kuzemchek, and Wei Lee. Jason Liang Lin, John Liffrig, William Lin, and Amber Liu. Joseph Lohman, Isabel Robledo Lopez, Vince Schwen Lee, and Kazi Shafia Maishta. Michael Marcel, Sean Michael McCabe, Annie McVeigh, and Stephanie Michael. Alexis Middleman, Raul Montez, Nicholas Bayan Mostigan, and Marcella Oladesi Marissi. Thank you for your service, coders. We'll ask you to sit, and we'll ask the next group to come up. Dr. Joy Howell, Dr. Salvatore Silmi, Dr. R. Lee, and Dr. Joseph Safdie. Our students in the back are getting a good workout, you know. All right. Anand Narayan, E.J. Nisbeth, Robert Novo, and Afnan Narazaman. Rafael Ocasio-Diaz, Rita Ohan, Akene Onwubiko, and Gwyn Erzkan. Christopher Charles Padilla, Shrey Parimu, Hannah Park Lee, and Githika Patwardhan. Rogelio Perez, Nitika Rostagi, Akash Reddy, and Julia Rubin. Celine Sabah, Zara Schindler, Hiba Shakra, and Ezra Shimabenga. So I'm going to ask Dr. Howell to stay on the stage, and our other coders are dismissed. You're doing double duty today, Joy. Will Dr. Joshua Weaver, Dr. Erica Abramson, and Dr. June Chan come up? Sarah Stuckey, Sonal Swain, Andrew Joseph Swenson, and Grace Tang. Aaliyah Thomas, Nancy Tran, Disha Hamang Trivedi, and Gabrielle Umanova. Amy Catherine Russetti, Nina Vijay Vargia, Alejandro Villar Lehman, and Kellen Vu. Jillian Washira, Christian White, Levon Witherspoon, and Karen Yang. Jasmine Yu, Sin Yi Yu, Eric Yuan, and Zachary Zarugian. Fengray Zhan, and Daniel Zuniga.
Thank you, coders. Thank you, students. As we conclude today's ceremony, I'd like to share a few final words. Thank you again to our faculty for serving as coders for this event, and to our inspirational white coat speaker, Dr. Laura Riley. Students, I can assure you that our coders represent the best of Weill Cornell Medicine and the dedication of our faculty to the students here at Weill Cornell. I'd also like to take a moment to acknowledge the efforts of the admissions team under the leadership of Dr. Kevin Holcomb for their work in selecting and ushering in this impressive new class of medical students. Dr. Holcomb has left Weill Cornell for a new position, and we wish him all the best in his new role. Thank you to the staff in education events, medical education, and external affairs, and a special thank you to Tasha Ramsey from the Griffiths Faculty Club for your efforts in making the white coat ceremony such a wonderful occasion. A heartfelt thank you to the Moss Family Foundation for the coats and for the stethoscopes you received today, given in honor of Dr. Paul Miskovitz, clinical professor of medicine and an alumnus of Weill Cornell Medical College. This ongoing commitment to Weill Cornell students serves to strengthen our Weill Cornell family. Thank you to the Weill Cornell Medical College alumni who have generously supported the Stethoscope Fund. When you received your stethoscopes today, students, you may have noticed that you've also received a note from an alum who sends their very best wishes to you on this milestone occasion. We hope you will be in touch with your alumni sponsor. We know they'd love to hear from you. Thank you as well to the family members and loved ones who have supported the aspirations of our students. We know that they would not be here without you. Finally, one more welcome to our students. Class of 2028, you are a special addition to the Weill Cornell family. Please join me in one final round of applause for our new students.